But our focus today on the big meeting that was held by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Union Home Minister Amit Shah on Jammu and Kashmir. The big icebreaker, the first meeting since Article 370 was repealed in August 2019. The big takeaways. Prime Minister Modi's one line for the day first. I want to remove Delhi se duri and Dil ki duri. Kashmir political parties stuck to their demand for statehood or restoration of statehood and Article 370 being restored. The centre says statehood will be restored at the right time. The centre remained silent on Article 370, saying the matter was sub judice. The centre says it plans assembly elections after delimitation of constituencies. No time frame has been given for assembly elections in J&K as of now. So what was really this meeting all about? Was it only about the optics? Was it an icebreaker? Or will it really lead to a roadmap for the future of a so-called Naya Kashmir? In a moment from now, I'll be joined by the former Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah. But first, take a look at what happened at that meeting.
A bid to remove Delhi se duri and Dil ki duri. A pledge to bridge the distance between Srinagar and the capital. A pledge to win people's heart. That was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's biggest message in his meeting with political leaders from Jammu and Kashmir that lasted 3.5 hours. The centre and the representatives from J&K walked the tightrope as they agreed on some issues and dodged others. The Modi government said it is keen to hold elections, but delimitation needs to be completed first.
जम्मू कश्मीर को यूनियन टेरिटरी का दर्जा दिया गया। वो यूनियन टेरिटरी जो है वो वहाँ चाहे वो जम्मू के लोग हों चाहे वो कश्मीर के लोग हों वो इस यूनियन टेरिटरी को बिल्कुल नहीं पसंद करते। इसमें फुल स्टेटहुड विद J&K cadre restored to J&K, not UT cadre, not any other cadre. J&K must be restored its full statehood and must be restored its own independent cadre.
प्रधानमंत्री जी ने कहा कि जम्मू कश्मीर में लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रिया से जुड़े अगले महत्वपूर्ण कदम यानी विधानसभा चुनाव की तरफ हमें मिलकर जाना है। इसके लिए डीलिमिटेशन की प्रक्रिया को तेजी से पूरा करना होगा।
The main flashpoint, Article 370, remained untouched. The Kashmiri parties wanted it back. The centre refused to address the issue, claiming the matter is in the courts. The centre, though assured, statehood will be restored, but at the right time. Emerging from the meeting, the PDP chief issued clarification on her demand for talks with Pakistan.
मैंने उनको कॉम्प्लीमेंट किया, आपने पाकिस्तान से बात की, सीज फायर कराया, बहुत अच्छी बात है, इन्फिल्ट्रेशन कम हुई, बहुत अच्छी बात है। अब अगर जम्मू कश्मीर के लोगों को सुकून मिलता है, आराम मिलता है, उसके लिए अगर आपको पाकिस्तान से फिर बात करनी पड़े, करनी चाहिए।
The Prime Minister's outreach program saw a thaw in relations between the Jammu Kashmir leaders and the centre. With the Home Minister spelling out the contours for the map ahead, the Prime Minister added a dash of personal touch. Now all eyes are on the Delimitation Commission before the electoral process can be rolled out. With video journalist Pawan, this is Mosmi Singh in Delhi for India Today.
My first guest who's joining me today, Omar Abdullah, former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister, joins us. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Abdullah. I want to understand at the very outset, a year ago when I spoke to you, or soon after you were released from house arrest, you had said very clearly what is there to talk with Delhi about. Now you've come to Delhi, spoken to the Prime Minister over 3.5 hours. What changed? What did you really talk about? What was this meeting about?
We talked about everything. We talked about the disconnect between the people of Jammu and Kashmir and the rest of the country. We talked about the concerted attempts being made to add to this mistrust rather than to bridge it. We talked about our unwillingness to accept the unilateral changes that were forced on Jammu and Kashmir on the 5th of August 2019. We reiterated our commitment to use peaceful, constitutional, legal means to have this change overturned. And we came to listen to the Prime Minister. We wanted to hear what the Prime Minister had to say vis-a-vis his outlook for what the next steps in Jammu and Kashmir are going to be.
No, so what is the change? I want to understand. I am unable still to understand what is the change that has taken place either in your stand or that of the Prime Minister beyond the fact that the two groups, or really the valley-based parties and the Prime Minister and the BJP, met over a cup of tea. What has really changed on the ground? Has the trust deficit been bridged? The Delhi ki duri.
No, it hasn't. But there is a first step has to be made somewhere, and the Prime Minister made the first step. Nothing in terms of, when you say what has changed in our stand, nothing has changed in our stand. Nor was changing our stand a precondition to this talk, because if it had been, these talks wouldn't have taken place. We weren't asked to drop our demand for rolling back what happened on the 5th of August 2019. We weren't asked to withdraw our case from the Supreme Court. We weren't asked to stop our opposition to what had been done to the state of Jammu and Kashmir in 2019. So as far as we are concerned, nothing in our stand changed whatsoever. We came and we put exactly those points in front of the Prime Minister, and in all fairness to the Prime Minister, he did not stop us from speaking. He did not interrupt us when we spoke. Those who got a chance to speak spoke freely and said some things that perhaps would not have been very pleasant listening for the representatives of the Government of India in that meeting, but they heard us out patiently, and that's as good as we can expect at the moment.
No, sir. I'm sorry to be persistent. I'm trying to understand, were you given any assurances that have led you to believe that this is more than just about optics? I mean, there is one view, the cynical view, that this is just about optics, that there is pressure on the Government of India from the Americans, from the American withdrawal in Afghanistan, from what's happened along the line of actual control, all of which has led to this meeting. Nothing has changed on the ground in Srinagar in particular, and Delhi also is not willing to concede to your demand for statehood or indeed your demand for a repeal of Article 370.
I'm sorry, but who said New Delhi is not considering the demand for statehood? None of us who were sitting in that meeting got that impression. We were told that statehood would be restored.
You were told that statehood will be restored within a specific time frame, or were you told that after delimitation? Surely a meeting like this was not about delimitation. Did you get, you're making an important point. You're telling me you got the impression distinctly that the government is ready to restore statehood.
I have come back from that meeting with two distinct impressions. That the Government of India is very keen to hold early elections to restore elected popular government to Jammu and Kashmir, and the Government of India is very keen to restore statehood to the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
Were you given a roadmap, or do you believe that that will require more meetings?
Well, obviously you don't expect everything to be rolled out in the very first meeting. This is the first time most of us have met the Prime Minister in almost 2 years. There is a long way to go towards addressing some of the distance and the gap, as the Prime Minister himself said, Delhi se duri aur dil ki duri. There is a lot of that even within the four walls of the meeting hall this afternoon. So I don't think anybody expected that one meeting would resolve everything. It's like I said in the beginning, this is the start of a process. The Prime Minister invited us, and I, for one, was keen to hear what he had to say, and that's it.
And I'm getting from you a definite sense of softening towards the Prime Minister. Looks like whatever the Prime Minister served you, both in terms of the fact that he listened to you and
Rajdeep, that's your own impression. I can't disabuse you of the notions that you want to develop.
The reason I'm saying it, Mr. Abdullah, I don't sense the anger I sensed in you when you were released after 9 months that you spent behind. Is the anger over now? Is the anger over? Is the bitterness over?
I don't wear my heart on my sleeve. That's never been who I am. I've always been an extremely reserved person in how I express how I feel. And I'm not going to change that just to put on an act for somebody's enjoyment. I am who I am. I feel the way I feel. And those of us who participated in this meeting and those who got an opportunity to speak, believe me, they left no stone unturned to let the Prime Minister know exactly how they felt about the way the people of Jammu and Kashmir and specifically how we were treated after 5th August 2019. You may or may not get to hear direct quotes of what was said, but believe me, I was in the room, I heard the people who spoke, and they didn't leave any stone unturned to make their feelings known.
Can you give me a direct quote that you or your father,
No.
Dr. Farooq Abdullah, gave the
No.
Prime Minister? You're saying you did plain speaking. I want to understand. When you say plain speaking, can you tell us what the plain speaking was about?
No, Rajdeep, I'm not going to give you direct quotes. We were invited by the Prime Minister to speak. We spoke to the Prime Minister. We said what we had to. What I will tell you is that we spoke very plainly. We made it known to the Prime Minister how we felt about what happened on the 5th of August 2019, how we felt about the trust deficit, how we felt about the steps that needed to be taken to rebuild that trust that had been lost, and what we felt should be done to bridge this gap between New Delhi and the people of Jammu and Kashmir.
So what can you give us therefore a sense, because Mehbooba Mufti came out of the meeting and she was asked a question on Pakistan and whether Pakistan should be part of the dialogue process. Do you also support that this has to be a wider dialogue process, a sustained dialogue process before you reach some end point?
Come on, Rajdeep, let's not live in sort of denial. There is already a process ongoing with Pakistan. It may very well be tracked too, but there is a process that is going on, and neither government has denied it. We have read reports in newspapers today that there has been some amount of back channel conversation between the Indian and the Pakistani governments at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting. So I'd like to believe that this is already ongoing, and so be it. I've never been opposed to dialogue. I'm a strong votary of good relations between the two countries. No lesser leader than Prime Minister Vajpayee said that you can change your friends, you can't change your neighbors. Whether we like it or not, Pakistan is a neighbor of ours. We're not going to get to change that neighbor. So we need to learn to live with each other. And if there is a track to dialogue, I'm all for it, and I hope it makes progress.
You know, you said that you don't wear your anger on your sleeve or you don't wear your scars on your sleeve, but I must ask you, just 6 months ago, Amit Shah, the Home Minister, described you and other valley-based parties as the Gupkar gang. And he made various accusations, including virtually accusing you and others of being anti-national. Was any of that raised in today's meeting, or has all the acrimony now been set aside?
Are you asking me to speak for the Home Minister of India? I obviously will not do that, except to say that the Home Minister of India did not call us the Gupkar gang in this meeting, and the Home Minister heard us out patiently, didn't interrupt any of the people who spoke, listened to whatever we had to say, and as a first step, I think it's a good beginning.
So the final question is, you said this is a first step, it's a good beginning. In your view, are you saying that to achieve any kind of conclusive result, beyond just being an icebreaker, restoration of statehood and return of Article 370 are prerequisites? Are there any preconditions at all that you all are setting for elections to be held in the valley?
Look, Rajdeep, I've made this point in the past, I'll make it again. It is pointless to ask this government to restore Article 370 to us. They're not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make the demand just for optics.
Okay.
It is pointless to ask the Narendra Modi government to restore Article 370 when they are the architects of taking it away. Our fight for the restoration of Article 370 and to win back what was snatched from us on the 5th of August 2019 will take place in the Supreme Court. It is a constitutional, legal, political battle, and we will continue to wage it. As more than one speaker in the meeting today reminded the Honorable Prime Minister and Home Minister, it took about 70 years for the BJP to fulfill its commitment to remove Article 370. Hopefully, we won't have to wait 70 years to fulfill our commitment to get it back. Whether it's 70 weeks or 70 months, we're in it for the long haul. And we will take this to its logical conclusion.
Will you fight an election if Article 370 remains repealed?
Look, I have made it very clear I'm not looking to fight any assembly elections in the near future. I don't see any reason why I should change that.
That's not a clear answer. Will the National Conference fight an election in Jammu and Kashmir if Article 370 is not restored?
The National Conference fought the DDC elections. The National Conference is a mainstream political party. We're not the Hurriyat.
Okay. As I said, Omar Abdullah, I sense less of anger and I sense more of a willingness now to allow this dialogue process to hopefully reach its logical conclusion, which would be restoration of statehood, presumably at the very least. Good to see you smiling. The last time we spoke, you were far more angry. So you seem to have softened, if I may say so.
You've got me on a good day. That's not to say you won't find me on an angry day someday, but let's just say you perhaps got me on a slightly better day today.
Okay, good. It appears that the Prime Minister's tea or whatever else he served you has at least had some impact. Good to hear you and being very clear as always. Thank you very much, Omar Abdullah, for joining me on what happened at that meeting with the Prime Minister.